Money FM 89.3. Best of breakfast. The bigger picture, only on Money FM 89.3.
Good morning. Welcome to the bigger picture. And today, 3rd of January, is also Bitcoin's birthday, also known as Bitcoin Day. This date marks the anniversary of the creation and launch of Bitcoin. And as we've seen the past year, prices have been going up and up. Will it go even further this year and repeat its stellar performance? Let's check in now with Phan Vee Leung. He is the CIO for Trackrecord. V, good morning. How are you doing right now?
Hi, morning. I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing great. A great start to the year so far. I hope you had a good break as well. Let's start with what's happening in the markets when it comes to Bitcoin. And of course, 2024 was quite a banner year. It hit a new high, breaking above $100,000 per coin. It started to trim some of those gains so far at the start of the year. What do you make of last year's performance? Were you surprised by its record high?
Well, we did speak about Bitcoin at the beginning of last year as well. And we spoke about the launch of the Bitcoin ETF. And to me, we spoke then that it was a very significant moment. We drew parallels to when gold ETF was launched in 2004, and then gold went on the multi-year bull run, and it became from a fringe asset investment for gold bugs and conspiracy theories to a mainstream investment. And I think that's exactly what has become with Bitcoin as well. It's much more acceptable as an investment alternative now to mainstream investors, and it will continue to do so. Bitcoin went up about 120% last year. It was an eventual outcome, as we've been talking about it for quite some time now. But of course, we can never know how it behaves in the shorter run. It started the year quite badly, and then when Trump won the elections, as we headed into the US elections, started to do really well, and he finished the year very strongly. As you said, it broke above 100,000. But it has since retraced, but that's short-term movements. I think going forward, it will continue to do well as the year progresses.
Yeah, V, like you pointed out, it's been made more accessible in terms of trading, in terms of how people can just buy over the exchange. You don't need to know the technicals of having a wallet and so on like before. What have you seen in the past year? You run a investment and trading education agency. What have you seen in terms of the level of interest? I
think now it's much more acceptable to talk about Bitcoin. I think previously, when you suggest Bitcoin as an alternative, you get very violent responses in terms of arguments sometimes. But now I think it's almost a given that if you are a savvy investor, you should really consider. And that's also partly because more and more of the governments of the world are talking about Bitcoin. When the US president-elect talks about Bitcoin as a possible reserve asset for the United States of America, it becomes acceptable, right? If US starts to do it, and I believe he will really start to implement that. At least at the beginning, he will declare that they will not sell any Bitcoin ever again as long as he's in charge. And that's going to be a big deal because USA is one of the biggest holders of Bitcoins in the world. And that will start a lot of conversations in a lot of financial institutions as well. And we are starting to see that happening. We have governments talking about adding it to reserves. We have pension funds talking about adding it as an alternative asset for their balance sheets as well, for corporates as well. I think that's going to continue to gain traction, and it's just a matter of time before we see new highs again for Bitcoin.
Definitely more talk at least around Bitcoin. Now, as a trader or investor, how do you approach Bitcoin? Do you see it hitting $200,000 this year?
Well, it has to double from here to hit 200,000. I think it is entirely possible given the mainstream adoption that we are seeing. If the US should start to accumulate Bitcoin, as Trump said they would, I think it will start a buying spree in many different countries as well. We are seeing corporates starting to add it to the balance sheets. And the ETFs is a very pivotal moment in the history of Bitcoin as an asset class. Since its launch in January last year, they have now about $110 billion worth of Bitcoin under management in the United States exchange-traded funds. Accumulatively, that's 5% of the Bitcoin supply. And as we know, exchange-traded funds, they're quite sticky. When people buy it, they don't really sell it for a very long time to come. So we are going to see a demand continuing to grow, but supply is essentially remaining the same forever. We will see conversations where you know it very well yourself. When you spoke of Bitcoin some time back, actually only last year, it's almost like not many people are very interested because they don't know how to get involved. They think, oh yeah, we should do it, but we don't know how to get involved. Now it's very easy to get involved. You just open a US brokerage, click buy exchange traded funds, right? It's just like buying every other major US corporate as well. So it's very much simpler. As you said, there's no need to manage your wallets, no need to go to crypto exchanges that can go down in the next hour or the next day. So it's become very standard. It's a regulated industry for the exchange-traded funds. So it's very likely that we are going to see acceleration even in the mainstream adoption. We're going to see different institutional investors coming in, even governments, municipal governments and all coming in to adopt Bitcoin as an alternative asset class. Very likely we'll see continued price appreciation.
Yeah, it's not just Bitcoin prices. You also have the whole ecosystem. You're looking at the exchanges like Coinbase, and also some of the companies are starting to talk about having more reserves. And of course, MicroStrategy is one of those, just putting more money into cryptocurrency to, I guess, diversify. So I suppose there are many ways to play this Bitcoin story.
Yes, indeed. It's good that you mentioned MicroStrategy. Michael Saylor was considered as a bit of a cook when he started buying Bitcoin for his company. Right now, he's pretty much a hero. He's invited to major corporate boardrooms to talk about why he's doing this strategy. He continues to buy Bitcoin, and I believe it'll turn out to be very lucrative for anybody who adopts this strategy, because if you're one of the first few to do so and you start to have governments and other major corporates following you, you're pretty much in a good path to making money in the process in the years to come.
All right, V, switching tracks to what's also on the table is when it comes to the start of the year. In focus is also what's playing out in China. They've just recorded their first, I suppose, worst decline in, the worst start in over a decade to kick things off for 2025. So stocks tumbling there as investors start to get a bit jittery where things are going for the Chinese economy, among other issues. Where do you see the Chinese markets going from here?
Yes, as you pointed out, it's a bad start to the year. It's one of the worst in the past 10 years. In fact, it is the worst for the Chinese stocks. It was kind of a reaction to the Kaising manufacturing PMI, which is lower than expected, which essentially shows that the manufacturing sector is not as strong as previously thought. And it also follows towards the year end. We had the US stock selling off, so I guess the sentiment was a little bit weaker to start the year. But I think the Chinese authorities are quite serious about boosting the economy. Towards the end of last year, in December, we had the Politburo coming out to say that they will continue to boost policies, and Xi Jinping himself made a speech about that. We are likely to see more measures. In fact, we are seeing weaker economic numbers and weaker economic data to start the year. It's more likely that their resolve will get stronger to implement more policies. And of course, there's nervousness among investors as we approach January 20th, which is the date where Donald Trump takes over as the president of the United States. He has declared that he will implement and impose tariffs on all the trade partners that are not cooperative, that they're not friendly with the U.S., right? And China, of course, is one of the main culprits, according to him. So that's also weighing on sentiment. I believe that it's likely that the Chinese authorities will have policies planned to try to counter any of these negative impacts from the announcements of new tariffs and all. In the short term, yes, it's disappointing price action. In the short term, it's a bit weak. But having said that, last year we did see the first annual positive performance in the Chinese stocks since 2020. So I think we are seeing the bottoming of this bearish sentiment. It's going to take some time to turn things around, but I believe that the Chinese authorities will continue to implement policies and eventually they will get it right. I think this is the year that they get it right, yeah.
All right, a look ahead to what's in store for Chinese markets as well as Bitcoin. We've been chatting with Phan Vee Leung. He's the CIO for Trackrecord. V, thanks for your time and have a great year ahead.
You too. Take care. Bye-bye.
All right, take care. Stay Money FM 89.3.
Before acting on the information on Money FM, please consider if it's suitable for your own investment objectives, financial situation, and risk tolerance. To listen to more great interviews, download our podcasts at audio.sg or download the audio app. That's AWEDIO, audio at the App Store and Google Play.